You're 37 years old. It's 11:48 p.m. You just closed Instagram after watching someone your age post photos from a beach in Greece. You check your bank app, 3.4K dollar in checking, 18K dollar in your 401K. Credit card balance, 6.2K dollar. You make 72K a year. You feel like you're doing okay, but also like you're quietly behind. You tell yourself, I've still got time. And then you wonder for just a second, how much does the average person actually retire with? Because if it's some massive number, you're in trouble. And if it's tiny, that might be even scarier. Here's the thing, most people have a completely broken mental model of retirement. They imagine this giant mysterious pile of money that magically appears at 65. Like there's some secret level everyone eventually reaches if they just keep working long enough. That's not how it works. Retirement isn't an age event, it's a math event. And most people don't realize which side of the equation they're actually on. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about how much people actually retire with and why most of them are wildly unprepared. If you're someone who makes decent money but still feels behind, unsure whether you're building real wealth or just surviving month to month, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because what we're about to look at is uncomfortable. Let's start with reality. According to data from the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement savings for Americans aged 65 to 74 is roughly around 200K. Not the average, the median, meaning half of people in that age group have less than that. Let that sink in. 200K. Now, some people will say, well, that's just retirement accounts. They also have Social Security, sure, but we need to quantify this. If you have 200K invested at retirement and you follow the traditional 4% rule, that gives you 8K per year in withdrawals. 8,000. That's about 667 per month. Add Social Security. The average benefit today is roughly 1.8K per month. So now we're at about 2.4K per month total income. That's what the median retiree is working with. Now pause. If you make 70K today, that's about 5.8K per month before taxes. Maybe 4.5K after taxes depending on your state. And you're used to that. Your brain calibrates to that. Behavioral psychology calls this adaptation, lifestyle creep, hedonic normalization, whatever you call it, and your expenses stretch to meet your income like water filling a container. So imagine going from 4.5K per month to 2.4K. That's not a gentle step down. That's a cliff. And most people don't feel it coming because retirement math is invisible while you're working. Here's the mistake. People assume time fixes under saving. They think, I'll earn more later, I'll catch up. But retirement savings doesn't respond to hope. It responds to contribution rate times compounding. Let's break this down. Scenario 1, you start investing at 25. You invest $500 per month. You earn an average 7% annual return. By age 65, that grows to roughly 1.2 million. Now scenario 2, you wait until 35, same $500 per month, same 7% return. At 65, you end up with about 610K. That 10-year delay cut your outcome in half. Not because you invested less overall, but because compounding is front-loaded. It rewards early time more than later intensity. It's like pushing a snowball at the top of the hill versus halfway down. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most people don't invest $500 per month at 25. They're paying off student loans, they're upgrading apartments, they're financing cars, and psychologically that makes sense. At 25, retirement feels 40 years away. That's not just distant, that's abstract. Humans discount the future aggressively. It's called hyperbolic discounting. Your brain values today's 500 more than tomorrow's 5,000. But math doesn't care about your emotional discount rate. Let's zoom out. What does the average person actually retire with when we include all assets? Some estimates suggest the average net worth of someone aged 65 to 74 is over 1 million. But averages are misleading. Averages are pulled up by the top 10%. The median is far lower, and a huge portion of that net worth is home equity. So if someone has a 600K house paid off and 200K in retirement accounts, they might technically have 800K net worth. But you can't eat drywall. Unless you sell or downsize, your house doesn't produce income. So the real question is investable assets. And for many households, that number is shockingly modest. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I'm contributing to my 401K. I'm fine. Are you? Let's do another breakdown. You make 80K. You contribute 5% to your 401K. That's 4K per year. Your employer matches 4%. So total annual investment is about 7.2K. At 7% annual growth over 30 years, that becomes roughly 730K. Sounds decent, but 730K at a 4% withdrawal rate gives you about 29K per year. Add Social Security, maybe 22K per year. So total retirement income, roughly 51K before taxes. You made 80K in your working years, you're now at 51K. That's a 36% pay cut. Now, if your house is paid off and you live modestly, that might work. But if you carry debt into retirement, car payments, mortgage, lifestyle habits, that math gets tight fast. Here's what people miss. Retirement isn't about hitting some magic savings number. It's about replacing a percentage of your income that matches your fixed cost structure. And most people don't know their fixed cost structure. They just know their paycheck. Let's talk psychology again. When people get raises, they upgrade. Bigger apartment, nicer car, more dining out, subscription creep. This isn't stupidity, it's signaling. We use spending to signal status, safety, identity. The problem is, lifestyle upgrades are sticky. Income isn't guaranteed, so you build a life that requires 6K per month to sustain, and then expect retirement to magically produce that. But compounding doesn't respond to your upgraded taste in granite countertops. It responds to your savings rate. Now here's where things escalate. Let's compare two people. Person A makes 60K and saves 20%. Person B makes 120K and saves 5%. Person A invests 12K per year. Person B invests 6K per year. At 7% over 30 years, Person A ends up with about 1.1 million. Person B ends up with about 610K. The lower earner retires wealthier. Why? Because wealth is not built by income alone. It's built by the gap between income and lifestyle. That gap is your financial engine. If there's no gap, there's no engine. Now, common advice says just invest in the market. It'll average 10%. First, long-term real returns after inflation are closer to 6 to 7%. Second, the sequence of returns matters. If you retire into a downturn, your early withdrawals can permanently damage your portfolio. This is called sequence risk. Most people don't factor that in. They assume smooth growth. Markets don't move smoothly. They move violently. Another piece of advice you'll hear, you'll spend less in retirement. Maybe, but healthcare costs tend to rise, and time expands. When you're working, you're busy. In retirement, you have 12 extra hours per day. You will either spend that time cheaply or expensively. Travel, hobbies, helping family. Your spending pattern doesn't automatically shrink. It reshapes. Let's run a third scenario. You're 40 years old. You have 50K invested. You want to retire at 65 with 1 million. You have 25 years. At 7% growth, that 50K becomes about 270K on its own. So you need to generate another 730K through contributions and growth. To reach 1 million in 25 years at 7%, you'd need to invest roughly 1.2K per month. That's 14.4K per year. If you make 85K, that's about 17% of your income. Is that doable? Yes. Is it comfortable? Not always. That's the trade-off. And this is the psychological pivot. Most people frame retirement saving as deprivation. I can't spend this because future me needs it. But that framing fails because future you feels like a stranger. Research shows people literally perceive their future selves as different people neurologically. So saving feels like giving money away. Instead, flip it. You're not giving money to future you. You're buying freedom from mandatory labor. Every invested dollar is a worker you hire. If you invest $500 today and it grows to $5,000 over decades, that's a tiny employee that works for you forever. Now zoom out again. If the median retiree has around 200K in retirement accounts, what does that imply? It implies most people undersave consistently, not dramatically, consistently. They delay. They contribute just enough to feel responsible. They rely on home equity. They assume Social Security will handle it. They follow the herd, and the herd, financially speaking, is fragile. Now you might say, but Tom, I'm starting late. Is it even worth trying? Yes, because the alternative is mathematically worse. Let's quantify doing nothing. If you're 45 with 30K invested and you contribute 0 going forward, at 7%, that becomes about 122K by 65. That produces about 4.8K per year under a 4% rule. That's effectively nothing. But if instead you invest 1K per month from 45 to 65 20 years, at 7%, you end up around 520K. That's roughly 20K per year in in withdrawals, plus Social Security. Now you're in the 40K to 45K income range. Still not luxurious, but dramatically better. The difference between 122K and 520K is behavior, not income. It's the decision to engage versus drift, and that's the quiet tragedy. Most people don't make an explicit bad decision, they drift. They assume average is safe, but average retirement savings is not comfortable. Average retirement is constrained. Here's the shift. Stop asking, how much does the average person retire with? Start asking, what monthly income do I want at 65? And what asset base produces that? Work backward. If you want 70K per year in retirement income and expect 25K from Social Security, you need 45K from investments. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that requires about 1.1 million invested. Now the problem becomes tactical. How do you build 1.1 million? Over 30 years at 7%, that's about 900 per month. Over 20 years, that's about 2.2K per month. Time reduces required intensity. Delay increases required intensity. It's physics. You can't negotiate with it. And here's something that might frustrate you. The people who retire comfortably often don't look rich during their working years. They drive normal cars. They live slightly below their means. They automate investments. They avoid lifestyle inflation. They understand that wealth is invisible until it isn't. Meanwhile, high visible consumption often hides low net worth. Psychologically, that's hard because we compare lifestyles, not balance sheets. You see vacations, you don't see brokerage accounts. So are you better off than average? If you're in your 30s with 100K invested, you're ahead of median. If you're in your 40s with 250K invested, you're ahead of median. But don't let that create complacency. Median is not the goal. Financial independence is the goal. The average person retires with enough to survive. Disciplined people retire with options. That's the difference. Options to work part-time. Options to help family. Options to walk away from toxic environments. And that option value compounds psychologically long before retirement. Because when you know you're building real assets, you negotiate differently, you take risks differently, you sleep differently. Look, this isn't about shame, it's about awareness. The math is neutral. If you increase your savings rate by 5% starting this year, the long-term impact is massive. If you delay 5 more years, the cost is enormous. Small behavioral shifts today create non-linear outcomes decades from now. That's compounding, and that's the hidden opportunity, because if the average person retires with 200K, the bar to be above average is not superhuman. It requires clarity, consistency, and the willingness to feel slightly uncomfortable now in exchange for massive comfort later. So here's what I want you to do. Calculate your current invested assets. Estimate your Social Security conservatively. Decide your target retirement income. Work backward to the required asset base. Then calculate the monthly investment required to get there. No vibes, no hope, just math. And once you see the gap, you have power, because you can increase income, you can cut expenses, you can adjust timelines. But you can't fix what you refuse to measure. The average person drifts into retirement. You don't have to, you can design it. And if you're already ahead, good. That lead compounds too. Comment below where you are right now. Age and invested assets, not to compare, but to create awareness. If this shifted your perspective even slightly, hit the like button so more people see it. And if you want to think long-term about money instead of reacting short-term like most people do, subscribe. Because retirement isn't about age, it's about math. And math, if you respect it early enough, becomes your greatest unfair advantage.